Hello everyone, welcome to this week's edition of the Renko Edge, where we look at futures markets using the Renko charts, looking for key setups and ideas, like I said, for the next 5 days. Apologies for last week's absence. I was hit by a dose of the old illness and back on it this week. So let's get straight into those charts. And what have we got for you this week? Well, let's start in our usual rundown. We've got copper here. Copper not looking too bad at the moment. We had that lovely little return from a big sell-off. Let me just pull that back a bit, see where that came down from. So it has fallen quite a way there. Let's put the old Fibonacci on that one. See what we've got in terms of levels there, because copper looking like a good bullish return at the moment. They're just coming up to that, as you can see, that Fibonacci line 5.13. Still everything bullish in the stochastics below. In the shorter term, well, in the very short term, we've just got this sell-off from this morning, but medium term still looking pretty decent. So maybe some buying the dip opportunities. That key Fibonacci there at 5.314, probably the one to hone in on in the shorter term. And in terms of other stats there, vol quite low, 31% historical, and you're there averaging 45. And we've got our large speculators here also falling off, a bit more bearish. And what have we got there at the bottom? Seasonality this time of year, not too bad, pretty decent actually for a run up there. So some mixed bag there, but technically looking still quite strong. So one to keep on your radar. And of course, gold still pushing towards the magic 4,000. Looks like it's near there. Well, we're at 3.9. Let's just double check the settings on that for a regular trading. Let's turn it to electronic trading so we get this morning's news in there. What have we got? Yes, it's still pushing on up towards that magic 4,000. And let's take again, well, we can see the run actually up from, really it started, we had that nice pullback beginning of August, and then it's been one way. So let's get the fibs on that as well to look at some potential target areas. What have we got? Well, we could be seeing, well, we'd obviously like it to get to the magic 4,000 first, but after that, we're talking 4,135, 4,200 sort of area. Failure from here, 4,000 gets to 4,000. Quite often, people have taken their profits, you know, got to that psychological round number. We could see it pulling back to the 3,850 sort of zone, but as you can see this morning, it was all looking pretty rosy as well. Just quietening off at the moment, lunchtime over here in the UK. But yeah, definitely still bullish there. Large speculators as well picking up as well. And the commitment of traders data, all good signs. And in terms of seasonality, pretty strong this time of year. Volatility at a low, 15-16%. So it's quite low for gold. You can see back in May time we were more, you know, mid-30s, so quite there. So you could be prone to some spikes there in the old gold price move, but still very, very good for bullish upside. And silver, you know, it's highly correlated to it. It's the same sort of patterns. Maybe in the commitment of traders data down there, not quite so bullish, which is interesting. And volatility picking up a bit more than gold. You can see it's a lot more volatile than gold, 35%, 36% at the moment. Short term, medium term, all looking good, and so is that longer term. So very, like I said, correlated to gold. So keep that one also on your radar. And then platinum, I also think is doing not so bad at the moment. Now let me just flick to another chart that I've got. Let's see if we can find that while we're waiting. my seasonality matrix that I sometimes pull out in these sessions. Here he comes. Let's just have a look at the metals here at the moment. So we're into October now, and platinum and silver normally pretty bullish this time of year. Copper surprisingly more bearish before it starts picking up again into the last quarter and into the new year. Gold a bit quieter as well in October, despite its bullish run. That's if we're applying seasonality to it, and then we get a nice strong run through to February time. What other markets while we're just scanning these look good in October? Cotton and what's that? Orange juice, pretty bullish. Cocoa bearish. The hogs, bit of a mix, still bullish but turning bearish. Live cattle still bullish. Soybean oil very bullish at this time of year. Corn pretty bullish. Soybeans turning bullish after this week. What else could we pick out there? Down the bottom there, crude oil going more bearish for October, November, as are the other sort of energy type of products there. Heating oil, nat gas, RBOB, but nat gas does pick up again in November time due to weather and seasonality over there in the States. And US stock markets in particular that we'll be focusing on because of the CME futures markets. You've got, what have we got? Well, it's all, well, you can see it's all pretty juicy, isn't it, really, to the upside. Only the Nikkei at the bottom there looking weak, but as we'll see in a moment in the charts, the Nikkei has been performing quite well of late. But a good indication there that, you know, all the way through now till December, first weeks of January, pretty bullish. There's reasons for that, which we won't go into today, but it's certainly worth watching out for. And then back to the charts. We're saying platinum, we're looking, you know, we just saw there, platinum looking quite all right for going more bullish. So let's just again pick off some targets for us using the Fibonacci. Upside, we can get through this 1650, 1660 area. We got the mid 1750s as the next upside. This range, which we've seen since 29th Sept there, could be the pullback 1573, more likely the stronger Fibonacci there at 1511. Could be worth watching out for a pullback, but seasonality wise, you know, it could be a nice buy the dip opportunity. You see in the commitment of traders, you know, the longs have got longer, volatility picking up. It's encouraging, 47% at the moment. Short medium term also looking reasonably bullish as well. Palladium, not so interesting there, pretty sideways, but you know, watch for that breakout on upwards. Now FX, let's just jump to another slide for the FX world. Now pick a bunch at the moment here, I think it's the Australian dollar, although that in itself is also coming back. Let's just try and mark that with some different colors. Let's just see if we can change that quickly for you so you can actually see it. There we go. As you can see, we had that run up in the price since late September. It's been trending nice and getting a bit stronger. You can see currency strength also favouring the Australian dollar versus US dollar at the moment. What else have we got there? Well, you can see that the stochastic is pulling back now, so it's going quite to that nice uptrend, could be fading out. But you know, with the strength there, we could be maybe looking for, you know, another buy the dip opportunity there in the Australian dollar. Now, I'm not going to go through all the other currencies because I've looked at them before, and we'll quickly go through them but not spend too much time on them because there's nothing really there that pops out to me at the moment. We got the pound, looking weakish at the moment. Canadian dollar, same sort of pattern. Yen, the same. And the euro there, is not too much to get excited about from those major currency pairs. Just jumping into the Swiss franc, similar type of thing, suggesting that they're weakening off against the US dollar at the moment. So a bit of strength there for US dollar. And then South African rand, maybe, it's a bit more of a volatile currency than some, but possibly pushing up to the upside. But again, you're looking in the shorter term or medium term, reasonably flat. And Bitcoin, onto some cryptocurrencies, storming on away. Is it going to 150,000? Could well be. Let's put on the Fibonacci's, get our numbers. Let's take this current trend that's been playing out. That's from the late part of September to recent highs. We've got some ladders there for you to have a look at. To the upside, next stop, nearly 130,000. Still a way to go for the 150, it feels, but with the volatile nature of Bitcoin, it might happen quite quickly if it wants to do it. But at the moment, I would be targeting more mid, sort of early 130,000s if I was more bullish. And the downsides showing up on the Fibonacci. We got 121, 122 to 120, 119. So that sort of pullback zone in there. If you want to look for a buy the dip possibility. And Bitcoin looking stronger than Ethereum at the moment. Ethereum's recovered nicely as well. That was the stronger play over the summer. As you can see, we pulled that back. Had performed nicely. Let's take a longer term look actually at Ethereum. A much longer term look. Again, got to get up to those highs at 4844, around about there, and then got to push on up. Next longer term target 5.5, and downsides. Look at that nice key Fibonacci there. There's a lot of noise in around at that level, so that's a really strong position. 3850 pullback there. If it holds, then you really know that Ethereum's a strong bullish play. But breaks there, we're off down back to where we were mid-year. But at the moment, it held there nicely. The support, resistance, support switch, very nice play there around. When was that? Like I said, latter parts of September, for pushing back towards these more recent highs. And we've got the futures data here for Ethereum. We can see that people, the holders, the long players, large speculators going long. Volatility still reasonably high, 75% average, currently 56%, so trading below that. And the shorter term this morning, I'll call it weak bullish. Medium term, more stronger bullish. And let's get into some energy products. Here we go. Crude oil. Now we saw on that seasonality chart that crude oil can be weak this time of year. What have we got at the moment? Well, we've seen a sell-off over the last few days. It's looking quite rangy, which is nice if you've got mean reversion type strategy. There, $66 down to 61 in that range, just broken down below there into the sort of early 60s. In terms of potential downside moves, let's have a quick look if we think that is going to be more bearish. Obviously, you've got to watch out for your geopolitics with oil, but yeah, it's going to test that 60.5, and then we're looking at 59, 58.5 as the downsides. Back upside, you'd be targeting 61.8 Fibonacci at 62.70, 62.75, and then just under 64. As you can see this morning, it's been a sort of a bumpy ride, but mostly down, negative start to the week. With that, like I said, that feel of more bearishness as it broke through the lows at 61.79 area. And we go to the COT data. The large speculators certainly more bearish. Nothing too much to talk about in terms of volatility either. 29.30 quite low for the oil market, considering that we, back even as early as June, we had highs, 77, 80%. Heating oil is going to be very similar to crude oil, quite correlated there. Nat gas has been picking up in recent days. Large speculators sort of plateauing out there more so. Had that nice run on up. We looked at the seasonality just earlier. November time, probably more a bullish play for nat gas. RBOB gasoline feeling weak as well, possibly to the downside move to 1.8 sort of area, although the large speculators are reasonably bullish. And then into our equity indices, it's still the same old story. It's nothing really new to report here. It's up for the S&P 500. After a quieter start to the year, it's starting to push on through, and the Nasdaq seemed to me to be a bit more strong at the moment than the S&P. Let's have a look at a quick up target area. Let's take this recent range from the beginning of September, where we'll be targeting. You're looking at 25,750 as a decent up move there. If it breaks on up through these highs, we've got a bit of a topping pattern forming there, as you can see. And just trying to break on up there this morning into the zone. Fallback place is 24.75, 24.5 that side, but like I said, looking pretty decent at the moment. The Indian Nifty, not so exciting currently. Sort of a bit rangy again from 26,000 to early 24,000s. So again, maybe a mean reversion play there at the moment until it can break out of those zones. Let's just have a quick look at those internal numbers. Is there anything that catches our eye? Can't say there really is. Coming up to 25,118, 61.8% Fibonacci line could prove a reversal point back down to the late 24,000s possibly. Shorter term, a bit more encouraging there this morning and over October so far, but look at the volatility there, not a lot in that, 9-10%. Pretty dull. The DAX showed a bit of a recovery, the German DAX stock market. Again, I think it's coming into those overhead conditions that we saw back in August, so it's really got to break up through the 24.5 zone if it's going to do anything. Let's just see where it's really looking like this could be a lot of overhead noise. Might struggle to break through, but once it does, it could establish new sort of ranges of highs. Let's take it from there, which was back in July. Takes to that recent big low. And what were we looking at? 24.7 was the high there. I suppose a big psychological target, 25,000, 25,100. But there's lots of opportunity here for it to pull back to the early 24s, even 23,800, 850 area. Japanese stock market, we saw a bit bearish on seasonality, Nikkei 225, but still looking pretty decent. A really strong run well, let's just really pull it back really from April time and see how far percentages that's increased. So from the low, we've got a gain there at 58% price gain over that. That's pretty decent going there over that period. Can it go higher? Yes, it could do. It's still looking pretty decent in all the variables underlying it. Let's have a quick look, give you an idea of a number to aim for. 51,000, just under, as a potential upside target. Possibly into that move into this zone. Pullback areas, support 46,725, 45,285. Then into some softs, nothing much happening there in cotton. Coffee, which was such a great one last year, this year not so much so. Now orange juice, we'll wait for hurricane season to pick up there if he wants any upside. For that one, cocoa, we saw seasonality wise it's weak, and we had lots of west coast of Africa issues that drove the price up over recent years, but now looking a lot weaker. Let's take a look at some potential numbers again. What have we got to the downside for cocoa? We're talking pretty longer term here. We're talking in 4 3/4, 5,000 zone. A little recovery back to the early 7,000s, but as you can see in the charts, the more nearer term stuff, all pretty bearish. Sugar, nothing too exciting happening there again. We've got this range between 17 and 15. We need it to break up through there to get excited to if we're bullish. What else have we got? Another sugar. Live cattle, still plodding along slowly to the upside. Bit spiky on the way there, but still, it's still got some sort of strength left there to the upside. We got feeder capital, similar pattern, but you can see deteriorating more closely in the shorter term. The old hogs, as it's done its stuff, we're going to go back down to these lows at 89 sort of area. And what else have we got? Let's risk for a few of these. Lumber. Normally, I think historically, seasonality would say it's bearish at this time of year, but let's just whack this on here. We've got that sort of double bottom there that provided the support. It's going up through the ladder. Use that Fibonacci there at 5, 6, 2.5, and then playing its way up. Might get into a lot of noise there. So an interesting one to watch if you trade the lumber. And then let's get into some grains. Don't think there's too much really happening in the grains at the moment. The corn there, all a bit heady. You would say, if you're arguing, maybe that's a start of a weak head and shoulders, maybe for a move back down into that 3, 8, 5 sort of zone. Soybeans, we did see them starting to pick up seasonality wise this time of the year, so it's definitely one to watch. Soybeans and their components. At the moment, let's just run some upside numbers there. It is a very strong seasonal play, the soybeans, just due to the nature of harvesting and growing. Got to get through the highs, 107.9, targeting it 1100 and 1120. And in terms of the large speculators, call them weak bearish. Not a lot of volatility in there at the moment, around 11 to 15%. And I've got to say the shorter term also not looking too exciting, but definitely one to keep on the radar. Same with soybean oil and soybean meal there, but I'll be focusing on the soybeans out of any of them. Oats heading still south, and what were the last two? Rice still again as well heading south. Finally, wheat, I think it's a bit flat. Yeah, dull between 500 and 530. So that's the quick look at the futures markets for this week. I suppose if I just quickly look through there, maybe copper, gold, silver, platinum, Australian dollar, Bitcoin, the two US stock markets, S&P and Nasdaq, Nikkei in Japan looking quite decent. Cocoa maybe moving to the south. So I've just been asked, can I provide a swing trading strategy for Bitcoin and gold? They are on the other videos I've produced in the book as well. So they are out there already, and they all apply to Bitcoin and gold, any asset for that matter. Another question, any reason we're using ATR? Really for speed. I set them to particular blocks of time, 45 minutes, 20 minutes, 5 minutes, to replicate, without having to, we've looked through 50 odd markets there, maybe more, very quickly. Don't have time to keep keying in the block sizes, but using these approximations, it gives us a good example of the block sizes we should be using for that sort of time frame analysis. So there you go. Hope you've enjoyed the program this week, and we'll be back next week. Don't forget to check out the other videos on the channel, the books. You can see hovering over my shoulder, they're available on www.thestophunter.co.uk bookstore. Some other new stuff coming out as well, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you again soon. See ya.